Aloha. I'm here with Jim Kimmel. I'm Jason Schwartz. How are you today? We have a great show today. We were going to talk about the Tower of Babel, but Jim was just saying to me that to understand about the Tower of Babel, you have to understand who built it and who they are. And so you're just trying to research that, huh?
Yeah. The
Paper 77.
in other programs we talked about the Lucifer rebellion, but we never really talked about the planetary rebellion that took place on our world.
Okay.
And that's what
Planetary
the
rebellion.
planetary rebellion. When the planetary prince, the superhuman leader, the spiritual administration of our world was under the sovereignty of one known as Kaligastia, who was the planetary prince of our world.
Okay.
He was to oversee the evolution of the race of people.
Kaligastia.
Kaligastia. So now, he was invisible to all the humans of the race. He brought with him a superhuman staff of one-time human beings from different worlds, 50 men and 50 women, and they were his physical assistants and his part of his mortal staff. And they at the time of the rebellion, a number of these members of his staff joined the rebellion with our planetary prince, who joined the rebellion.
And these beings are part of many of us identify them as human, but they're in another realm.
Well, they were
non-physical.
superhuman. They were one-time human beings in human forms.
Okay.
That had been specially created for them out of the germplasm that had been extracted from 50 of the best men and 50 of the best women of the people on earth at that time. Their germplasm served as the physical foundation for the materialization of their physical forms by the life carriers that were part of this mission of bestowal type of thing.
Wow, that's another subject for another day, but boy, that's a powerful one. Imagine what that means. It's talking about a part of the universal plan of God is to manifest in a more physical form. So this is pre-physicality. Wow, I even want to watch this one. Well, I'm going to watch this one and see what I was talking about. But I mean, each time I read with you, you talk about things like, talk about planetary rebellion by beings that are not human. Okay, to me, I can understand a being, a presence that is outside of the human form.
They led the human beings into their rebellion.
Okay.
The human beings got caught up in what's been known as the planetary rebellion. So for the last 200,000 years, our world has suffered the consequences of the first of our spiritual administrators to default, and the second default of superhuman administrators were Adam and Eve.
Who was first? Lucifer?
Kaligastia.
Oh, Kaligastia.
Kaligastia was the planetary prince. Lucifer was the sovereign of our local system of inhabited worlds. There were 619 inhabited worlds, and Lucifer was the sovereign over the whole system.
Okay.
The planetary princes were his administrators on each world.
I got it. Okay. And one was Kaligastia on Urantia.
On Urantia.
Okay.
And his staff of 100 some of them joined the rebellion, and others stayed faithful. They split in two.
Okay.
And most people who read the Bible or heard all the story about Adam and Eve in the Bible, they talk about the land of Nod.
Oh.
After Cain killed Abel, he went to the land of Nod.
Which sounds like sleep.
And got himself a wife. Of course, that doesn't say how those people got over there at all.
Yeah, right. We don't even know.
Adam and Eve were supposed to be the first two. See,
that's true.
That's not true. So the truth is,
Wow, that's powerful truth there. Wow. Okay. Go ahead. The truth is,
the leader of the rebel members of the Planetary Prince's staff was named Nod.
I get it. That's very
So when these
superhuman
beings went into rebellion, they were reduced to the status of human beings. They lost they couldn't just keep on living indefinitely.
It's like being here without antenna going out to our source.
Oh, big time, big time. You know you've been cut off.
Yeah, that's
now
it.
what are you going to do about it? And you got a lifetime to do it in.
Wow.
So the Nodites migrated to what became known as the land of Nod. And these were some of the brightest superhuman beings and their associates, their human associates, in the world at the time. So like, then there was a group of loyalists who made their headquarters up in the vicinity of Lake Van, which is Turkey. Right over there. Turkey.
Uh-huh.
See
I
Van?
see the little water. Oh, Van,
Van.
right. Lower Van or Lake Van.
Lake Van, or Vaughn they call it.
Near Tabriz. I don't know these places at all. Then the line into Syria. And what's this one? Mesopotamia?
I can't see.
Which is really Iraq. Iran is further over. I got you. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so Turkey, Lake Van, and over here in Iran is Lake Urmia. This is a very significant thing. We'll talk about that later, but that's
Okay.
where we'll be talking about the Urmia lectures of Jesus.
Okay.
So the Urmia lectures of Jesus were from this section of the world at that time when he was over there, and this is where the loyalists of the rebel planetary prince made their headquarters, and it was from there they went out and scouted the area. Where would the best Garden of Eden be? So from there they went out and finally they established the Garden of Eden. Originally was a peninsula that came off the eastern end of the Mediterranean here. It was a peninsula 28 miles wide at the coast, and that whole arm was like a big isthmus.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Garden of Eden, and the river flowed east to Eden,
East.
as the Bible says.
Wow. That's a big thing. Most rivers flow west.
That one flowed east.
That's interesting,
Yeah.
the way water flows. Okay.
Yeah, well, there were highlands on the Garden Peninsula. There were highlands. When the Turkish highlands began to uplift, there was a corresponding slowed down sinking at the eastern end of the Mediterranean, and that's what happened to the Garden of Eden. It's underwater over there right now. It could be seen and discovered easily with the right equipment.
How far down do you have your concept?
Couldn't be too deep.
Yeah.
Eastern end of the Mediterranean.
These are fantastic things to be talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So, let me see if I understand. It's Adam and Eve,
Mm-hmm.
land of Nod,
Mm-hmm.
those go together?
Well,
You were talking that The Nodites, the land of Nod.
Yeah.
Was that introduced?
Well, the land of Nod came into existence following the planetary rebellion a couple 100,000 years ago. So there was a long
Before
time,
Adam and Eve.
way before Adam and Eve, quite a bit before.
And that's where the reference to the land of Nod. See,
Yeah.
so now we know what the land of Nod. That's really very interesting. So Adam and Eve.
Right.
And then the Tower of Babel is after that?
Now the Tower of Babel,
Paper 77. Huh?
paper number 77 is titled The Midway Creatures, which is another subject altogether.
Okay.
But here's a section 2 titled The Nodite Race. The Nodite Race.
Okay.
The physical members of the prince's staff had been constituted sex creatures for the purpose of participating in the plan of procreating offspring, embodying the combined qualities of their special order, united with those of the selected stock of the Andon tribes, and all of this was in anticipation of the subsequent appearance of Adam. The life carriers had planned a new type of mortal, embracing the union of the conjoint offspring of the prince's staff with the first generation offspring of Adam and Eve.
Wow.
They had thus projected a plan envisioning a new order of planetary creatures whom they hoped would become the teacher rulers of human society.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is something. That's a challenge to beliefs for so long.
Oh my God.
Wow. But it also doesn't stop. It actually is an integration to me. It's an integration. It shares could be
It's an interface.
a creature that is not a human, so no need to identify its source. The fact that it evolved is by itself the powerful and most important factor there.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
so there we are. Here we are, Adam and Eve, new creatures. That now that's the planetary Prince of Peace.
No, not just the planetary prince. The Prince of Peace.
Oh, yeah,
That's
sorry.
who Jesus. That's who Jesus
Okay,
was.
the planetary Prince.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
I see that sometimes when I hear the words,
Sure.
I think to myself, this is so rich a fabric.
Oh.
We're just glossing the surface, and people will be looking by themselves to see and enjoy and read.
Yeah.
Fabulous
Right.
stories to
Oh,
tell.
it's fabulous. Such beings were designed for social sovereignty, not civil sovereignty. But since the project almost completely miscarried, we shall never know what an aristocracy of benign leadership and matchless culture Urantia was thus deprived of. For when the corporeal staff later reproduced, it was subsequent to the rebellion and after they had been deprived of their connection with the life currents of the system. The post-rebellion era on Urantia witnessed many unusual happenings. A great civilization, the culture of Dalmatia, was going to pieces. Quote, the Nephilim, Nodites, were on earth in those days. And when these sons of the gods went into the daughters of men, and they bore to them their children were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. While hardly sons of the gods, the staff and their early descendants were so regarded by the evolutionary mortals of those distant days. Even their stature came to be magnified by tradition. This, then, is the origin of the well-nigh universal folk tale of the gods who came down to earth, and there with the daughters of men begot an ancient race of heroes. And all this legend became further confused with the race mixtures of the later appearing Adamites in the second garden.
The second garden.
The second garden.
That's so the Garden of Eden was the second garden.
Well, the first garden was the peninsula that stuck out in
Oh,
the
okay. Then that got decimated.
Well, it didn't get decimated.
It got submerged.
Way before it went down, Adam and Eve defaulted on their mission. Their mission to this world were as biologic uplifters. They were to provide the the children, their pure line children, were supposed to inbreed with all of the different races that were on Earth in those days.
I see.
500,000 were to come to the red race in North America, 500,000 to Africa, 500,000 or so to Asia. All these sons of God, of Adam and Eve, were supposed to uplift the races genetically.
I got it. Wow.
And
I can see that. I can visualize different races, people.
Yeah.
And that now they were given the elements to be able to uplift through creation. So how did Adam and Eve not live up to their obligation? What was their obligation?
Well, after about 100 years maybe, Adam and Eve were really disappointed with the progress of things in the garden. Here they were on an isolated world, completely cut off with all communication, anybody on any other planet, their own kind.
This is on the little piece of island thrown out there. Right?
That's, this.
Okay.
So here they are in this incredible world, suffering the consequences of this planetary rebellion. So things aren't the way they're supposed to be for the Adam and Eve. When they usually come, the world has been made ready for them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Instead, they're in a world that's in the middle of rebellion still. And so Eve decided it might be advantageous to take a shortcut, and if she were to have a child of the best genetically constituted member of the Nodite race, then that child could get brought up there in the garden and then go back and live with his people and introduce everything, new genes, So
she went with the snake guy?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That she bit the apple and then...
Well, it wasn't quite like that, but...
Isn't that romantic sounding? It's Snow White.
But the whole story of Adam and Eve and her default is an incredible chapter in the history of our world. It's phenomenal.
Now, how long do you say these papers, like this paper, for someone to be able to read this and really get the significance of this? Because what you just brought up about Adam and Eve is all to set up the talk about the Tower of Babel. Yeah. How rich is the fabric we walk on? I don't know how much time we're talking, but I can see why. Wait till you guys start calling in, and we have subjects in different parts and things. So this is a great learning and growing process. It's wonderful.
Sure.
So is the Tower of Babel something we can just talk about now that we know the basis of from whence it came?
Well, here it says now the Tower of Babel.
Oh, that's next. Oh, okay. Want to read a little bit to us?
Sure.
Okay.
After the submergence of Dalmatia, which was that was the planetary headquarters at the time. That's where the planetary prince had his headquarters, at the head of the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
It's underwater now.
All right.
Okay. After the submergence of Dalmatia, the Nodites moved north and east, presently founding the new city of Dilmun as their racial and cultural headquarters. And about 50,000 years after the death of Nod, when the offspring of the prince's staff had become too numerous to find subsistence in the lands immediately surrounding their new city of Dilmun, and after they had reached out to intermarry with the Andonite and Sanghic tribes adjoining their borders, it occurred to their leaders that something should be done to preserve their racial unity. Accordingly, a council of tribes was called, and after much deliberation, the plan of Bablut, a descendant of Nod, was endorsed. Bablut proposed to erect a pretentious temple of racial glorification at the center of their then occupied territory. This temple was to have a tower, the like of which the world had never seen.
Okay, wow.
It was to be a monumental memorial to their passing greatness. There were many who wished to have this monument erected in Dilmun, but others contended that such a great structure should be placed a safe distance from the dangers of the sea, remembering the traditions of the engulfment of their first capital, Dalmatia.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is indeed. Babbitt planned that the new buildings should become the nucleus of the future center of the Naudite culture and civilization. His counsel finally prevailed, and construction was started in accordance with his plans.
Tower of Babel.
The new city was to be named Babbitt, B-A-B-L-O-T, after the architect and builder of the tower. This location later became known as Bablod, and eventually as Babel. But the Naudites were still somewhat divided in sentiment as to the plans and purposes of this undertaking. Neither were their leaders altogether agreed concerning either construction plans or usage of the buildings after they should be completed. After 4.5 years of work, a great dispute arose about the object and motive for the erection of the tower. The contentions became so bitter that all work stopped. The food carriers spread the news of the dissension, and large numbers of the tribes began to foregather at the building site. 3 differing views were propounded as to the purpose of building the tower. First, the largest group, almost 1/2, desired to see the tower built as a memorial of Naudite history and racial superiority. They thought it ought to be a great and imposing structure which would challenge the admiration of all future generations. Second, the next largest faction wanted the tower designed to commemorate the Dilmun culture. They foresaw that Babbitt would become a great center of commerce, art, and manufacture. And third, the smallest and minority contingent held that the erection of the tower presented an opportunity for making atonement for the folly of their progenitors in participating in the Kaligastia rebellion.
Wow, what was the first one? What was the first one, Dan? Because the last one is basically give it up. Number 2.
This is number 3.
Yeah. So number 1 was.
They wanted it to be about their history and racial superiority.
So the first one was about them as the Naudites. The second was about the place.
Center of Commerce, Art, and Culture.
Which was called?
Dilmun.
Dilmun. So it was Nod and Dilmun. And the third one is?
The smallest and minority contingent held that the erection of the tower presented an opportunity for making atonement for the folly of their progenitors in participating in the Kaligastia rebellion.
Okay, so that group wanted to honor yet another group.
They maintained that the tower should be devoted to the worship of the Father of all, that the whole purpose of the new city should be to take the place of Dalmatia, to function as the culture and religious center for the surrounding barbarians.
Well, still, I always wonder why people have the point. But barbarian is such a harsh word. Yeah, I got you. All right, so here we are. We're setting up the foundation of a tower that's being erected. We don't know how high it is. Do we know how high it is?
Well, we'll get to that shortly.
Oh, okay. So, and here's this tower that people wanted to honor the Nod people, the land that's sitting on, but there's a small group that says, hey, go to the source, go to the heart of what it is.
How come we're here? How did we get here?
Okay.
The religious group were promptly voted down.
Not a surprise.
The majority rejected the teaching that their ancestors had been guilty of rebellion. They resented such a racial stigma. Understandable, huh?
I guess so.
Having disposed of one of the 3 angles to the dispute and failing to settle the other 2 by debate, they fell to fighting.
Physical fighting.
The religionists, the non-combatants, fled to their homes in the south, while their fellows fought until well nigh obliterated. About 12,000 years ago, a second attempt to erect the Tower of Babel was made. The mixed races of the Andites, the Nodites and Adamites, undertook to raise a new temple on the ruins of the first structure, but there was not sufficient support for the enterprise. It fell of its own pretentious weight. This region was long known as the land of Babel.
How extremely awesome that concept. That something, because of its pretentious weight. I mean, what powerful words are those?
Yeah.
So, the fullness of themselves, about their land, about this, about themselves, all that created fighting, all from the pride, all from the things that got in the way of their pure beingness and love. Created such a pretentious weight that it crumbled, and they got identified for virtual, forever, because of that. Emotional, I guess emotional, those from focusing with that as motive.
It's all about motive.
Wow, that's a very good story. Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel.
Any other things you'd like to share with our audience about different things in our history that have a unique aspect
Well,
that
we talked
we've
about
never
Lake
considered
Urmia
before?
a little bit ago. We were talking about Lake Van,
Lake Van and Lake
Lake Urmia.
Urmia, which are in the
Urmia is in the northwestern section of Iran.
Iran. Okay, and the other one, like Van, is in Turkey.
Right.
Turkey and Iran.
So they're real close to each other, just across the border from one another,
I see.
as you see there on the map. You got it yet?
I got it right here. I'm pointing at it, in fact.
Oh, okay. Well, this location was visited by Jesus when he was the conductor of a camel caravan that he led. He was the conductor of the caravan that left Damascus, Syria, and went up to the Caspian Sea.
When was this? When he was in his growing
About
times?
28
Okay.
to 30.
Okay.
So they stopped at Lake Urmia for rest, and there was a bunch of islands off the shore, and there was a temple there. And this temple was a place where people of different religions got together and had daily visits, morning, afternoon, and evening, 3 days a week. These men would join together and discuss their views of reality with one another. So Jesus made the arrangements with the head of this group, whose name was Simboitin. Says, when I come back through here in a few weeks or so, I can stop back in. So he delivered 14 lectures at this location at that point in time. And this is some of the most systematic teaching of Jesus' entire...
That's here in the book?
Yeah.
Oh, coming up.
Yeah.
Good.
So it says, in accordance with his arrangement, Jesus stopped off on the return trip and delivered these lectures.
Okay.
This was the most systematic and formal of all the masters teaching on Urantia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
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 Very significant. Never before or after did he say so much on one subject as was contained in these lectures and discussions on the brotherhood of men.
Wow.
In reality, these lectures were on the kingdom of God and the kingdoms of men.
These words are coming up here.
Well,
What he talked about in those lectures, has that been narrated?
These lectures on sovereignty are very powerful and fundamental to world peace. It's fundamental to world peace. In his lectures here, he's like the dealer of the new game. Here come out the new deal, and it's a winner. He's dealing out the winning hand to the human race.
Those are nice
How we can
words.
save ourselves from ourselves righteously, beautifully, magnificently, by simply hearing about, understanding, and accepting the truth, and then being appreciative for the fact of...
Is there a book, I don't know if it's extracted from this or that has, maybe the Christians, any of you know, a book which is just the words of Jesus?
Well, that's what part 4 is here. That's what this is all about. That's what this is about. These are the words of Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No. Well, it should be qualified further, probably.
Okay.
Because these papers, well, let me explain it here.
Okay.
When we, the midwayers, first prepared the summary of Jesus' teachings at Urantia, there arose a disagreement between the seraphim of the churches and the seraphim of progress as to the wisdom of including these teachings in the Urantia revelation. Conditions of the 20th century, prevailing in both religion and human governments, are so different from those prevailing in Jesus' day that it was indeed difficult to adapt the Master's teachings at Urantia to the problems of the kingdom of God and the kingdoms of men as these world functions are existent in the 20th century. Yeah. We were never able to formulate a statement of the Master's teachings which was acceptable to both groups of these seraphim of planetary government. Finally, the Melchizedek chairman of the Revelatory Commission appointed a commission of 3 of our number to prepare our view of the Master's Urantia teachings as adapted to 20th century religious and political conditions on Urantia. Accordingly, we 3 secondary midwayers completed such an adaptation of Jesus' teachings, restating his pronouncements as we would apply them to present-day world conditions. And we now present these statements as they stand after having been edited by the Melchizedek chairman of the Revelatory Commission.
So this is edited text, what that's saying?
Edited by the Melchizedek chairman
By the...
of the Revelatory Commission.
Well, that's an interesting cut.
The,
Edited, okay.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So the first section deals with sovereignty,
All right.
divine and human.
The levels of what we're talking about and the significance and depth, very important. Sovereignty. Do everyone know what sovereignty means?
Sovereignty is power, it says in here shortly.
Oh, I'll be listening. See?
And it grows by organization.
That's a very, very powerful thing you just said. I'll just sit and listen.
All right, section 4, sovereignty, divine and human. The brotherhood of men is founded on the fatherhood of God. The family of God is derived from the love of God. God is love. God the Father divinely loves his children, all of them. The kingdom of heaven, the divine government, is founded on the fact of divine sovereignty. God is spirit. Since God is spirit, this kingdom is spiritual. The kingdom of heaven is neither material nor merely intellectual. It is a spiritual relationship between God and man. If different religions recognize the spirit sovereignty of God the Father, then will all such religions remain at peace. Only when one religion assumes that it is in some way superior to all others, and that it possesses exclusive authority over other religions, will such a religion presume to be intolerant of other religions or dare to persecute other religious believers.
Wow, isn't that a timely thing?
Indeed.
Indeed. Right, Democrats, Republicans, Greens, Liberals, all you guys?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Religious peace, brotherhood, can never exist unless all religions are willing to completely divest themselves of all ecclesiastical authority and fully surrender all concept of spiritual sovereignty.
That is a very powerful sentence.
God alone is spirit sovereign.
Are you catching the depth of this?
You cannot have equality among religions, religious liberty, without having religious wars, unless all religions consent to the transfer of all religious sovereignty to some superhuman level, to God. The kingdom of heaven in the hearts of men will create religious unity, not necessarily uniformity. Because any and all religious groups composed of such religious believers will be free from all notions of ecclesiastical authority, religious sovereignty.
I heard the Dalai Lama talking about just that. Continue. Yeah.
God is spirit, and God gives a fragment of his spirit self to dwell in the heart of man. Spiritually, all men are equal. The kingdom of heaven is free from castes, classes, social levels, and economic groups. You are all brethren. But the moment you lose sight of the spirit sovereignty of God the Father, some one religion will begin to assert its superiority over other religions. And then, instead of peace on earth and goodwill among men, there will start dissensions, recriminations, even religious wars, at least wars among religionists. Free-willed beings who regard themselves as equals, unless they mutually acknowledge themselves as subject to some super-sovereignty, some authority over and above themselves, sooner or later are tempted to try out their ability to gain power and authority over other persons and groups.
Well, that's really so telling about the way beings treat each other. Wow, that's powerful. I think we're right at the end of time here. I'm sure we're getting
The concept of equality never brings peace, except in the mutual recognition of some over-controlling influence of super-sovereignty.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. I know that the exciting pieces that are coming up are just going to make this explode in a fascinating way for everyone and in a rewarding way. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, for
We
sure.
are going to see you again soon. We want you to know I'm Jason Schwartz. This is Jim Kimmel. We hope that you will find your way into our world. Growing friends, asking questions, pushing the limits on us to create truth and love and coming from a place toward peace and being at peace. Jim, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
It is indeed. I enjoy it to the max.
Thank you for joining us. We hope one of these times we're going to do this live and include you with us
Right, that's going to be
live.
fun. A lot of fun.
Coming up soon. And beginning the life and teachings of Jesus. That's part 4 of the Urantia book. Coming up next. My goodness. That's worth staying into. I'm not sure which shirt I'll wear.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to it.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting together with you again. Thank you, Jim.
Much love.
Aloha.